Good morning. It's Richard Calhoun with Real Estate. I've been in the industry for 40 years. We're here to talk about Silicon Valley in the past week, as well as the monthly data for the month of February. Monthly data for February is 5 weeks, not a month. I do that because there is a significant weekly fluctuation in the data. And so by doing a 5 weeks, the data becomes more meaningful. Here are the links you need. I use the space URL in green. You add 2021, the year, to get to today's meeting. The handout is the word handout, the year, 2 digits for the month, 2 digits for the day. It is not yet posted. I will get it up shortly after the meeting ends. And it's just, I ran out of time. To get to archives, it's the root URL. And to get to a specific edition, you put in the year, month, and date code. So with that, we'll get into data. This is what I'm trying to get back to. You can see there's been a big gap here. You also can see I have a couple data points that are off the charts. I will fix those, I hope. But you can see the data is coming back on the other side of the huge MLS conversion. What this is showing you is the days of unsold inventory in the different micro market areas. And the key takeaway here is basically it's mostly flat for the most part. There's no huge up spikes. I'm sure this is a bad data point, just like this one's a bad data point. So we're down here. We're in the realm of a seller's market, a strong seller's market, and we'll get into that a little bit more. In general, I consider between 40 and 80 days to be a balanced marketplace. So every area is in a balanced marketplace. There's a few areas that are slower than that, and they're still within that range. So now what we look at is overall what's happening in the whole macro area. The macro area is Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, single family homes, condos, and townhouses, all grouped together as if they were one product. The yellow line is the 5-year median, 5 years of 2015 through 2019, which were 5 great years. Your two purple lines that you'll see, this one further to the right is when COVID was announced. Yes, we're very close to the anniversary. It was on the 16th of March 2020 that they announced it. Anything that happened by Friday, which is when this data is cut off by, would have already happened, and therefore there's still a 1-week gap. Yes, I think it impacted the data going back in time because escrows don't close instantaneously, but as far as great impact, as far as the number of listings, the number of closings, that impact will be seen next week. What the takeaway here is the current data 2021 is the blue line, and it's below the gold line. Days of unsold inventory, the lower the days of unsold inventory, the faster the marketplace is. And you can see we're below 20. That is just unbelievably fast. There is no other way to describe that. That basically says everything on the market would sell in about 19 days if everything was uniformly distributed. Now, it's not uniformly distributed. There's some properties that stay on the market for a long period of time, and there's a lot that sell faster than 19 days. Here's the breakdown, which becomes interesting. You can see that the DUI says it's 22. Not quite sure what the discrepancy is because the graph is plotting at 19. It almost looks like I'm plotting this number here, which I don't think I am, which is single family homes in both counties. I believe I'm bringing in condos and townhouses. So why it's below 20 instead of above 20, I don't know at this moment. But basically, the real takeaway is 20 days plus or minus a few days is a whole lot lower than 40, and that's what's causing the market to be on fire. Additionally, look at Santa Clara County, single family homes. It's the fastest here at 15.9 days, basically 16 days. That means if everything was uniformly distributed, we would sell everything out in 16 days. That's just a little 2 days over 2 weeks. You can see there's a big discrepancy. San Mateo County, which is normally faster, is slower at 27 days. So it's taking almost twice as long to sell in San Mateo County. So when you go up to San Mateo County and those agents think they're in a strong marketplace, they should come down to Santa Clara County single family homes and they'll be eye-opening. It's sort of like the people in Morgan Hill coming up to the northern Santa Clara County. Their market down in Morgan Hill and San Martin and Gilroy has always been slower. It's pretty rapid right now, but they just weren't used to that. They were also not used to overbidding, even though we're in the same county. Then if you look at condos, they're quite a bit slower. Again, about half as slow as single family for Santa Clara County, going from 16 days to 29 days. The condos in San Mateo County are slower at 37 days, average between the two because Santa Clara County is much larger as far as volume of houses is at 31 days. So that gives you a little bit of a breakdown. Now we're looking again at the whole macro data. If the year was completely normal, we'd be right on the yellow line at 100% because I'm comparing the current data to the 5-year median. And so the first line to look at is, again, the blue line. That's total available inventory. And you can see it's right down here, essentially at 100%. It did dip down last year, but that was because shelter in place shocked everybody and they sort of froze. I do not expect that to happen. My expectation is this will come along somewhere around the yellow line, right at a normal year. My gut feeling says we'll probably be a little bit below it just because it appears demand is so high. But, it's hard to really say. We'll be close to the yellow line. I see no reason for it to be significantly higher or significantly lower. The number of new listings coming on the market, you can see, is the gray line. It's been up, and so has total inventory, somewhere around 135% of normal. It came down to just about 100% last week. Now it's about 115%. That's just the number of new listings that came on in the past week. It's how much water is coming into your reservoir, where the blue line was the height of the reservoir. What's interesting is look at the red line. It's up here at 122% or something like that. That's the percentage of new offers. So the demand side of the equation is much stronger than the supply side. And in a free economy, supply demand is what drives future prices. So anytime the demand is higher than the supply, you're going to see increasing in pricing. Same concept, total inventory. This is a total inventory available on the marketplace without offers. You can see it was up here quite a bit higher than the yellow line, but in the last 3 weeks, it came right down and now it's at the yellow line. Where would I expect it to be? Sort of along the yellow line. What do I think happened? I think here is the surplus sellers coming on the market, and here that we're missing here, but the missing part is much smaller. There was clearly more activity. I'm not seeing the increase that I was sort of alluding to potentially expect because of the new Prop 19, where people over 55 could move. If we were seeing more inventory, instead of decreasing now, it should be increasing. And you might go, well, we're not at April 1st yet. Well, they only have to close by April 1st. So if you were anxious to get out of town and wanted to get on with the next stage of life, and Prop 13 was really keeping you in place, you'd be putting your house on the market basically at the middle of February to the beginning of March, a week or two for marketing, 30-day close of escrow. You close it on April 1st or April 2nd, and you move on with life. So it's not having the impact that I thought it was going to have. Time will tell what happens going forward. Now, maybe the sellers that are going to be moving aren't sophisticated and are going to wait till April 1st to list their property. I don't think so. I would think they'd be talking to people ahead of time and learning they could, market the house, and it's close of escrow that defines everything. Now we're looking at the number of new listings. And again, the blue line is the current data. The yellow is the norm. We're not going to fall off the cliff like we did last year because there's not going to be a shelter in place announcement that's going to rock the boat. So I'd expect it to float along, and I'd expect it to be above the yellow line. Why do I expect it to be above the yellow line? Well, the demand's there. That's going to bring out the sellers that would like to sell, that haven't been able to sell or whatever. But we've been in the market, a strong marketplace since 2015. And frankly, you can go back further than 2015. The bottom of the last market was probably 2010. Yes, 11 and 12 weren't great years, but the market was already improving. So we've had over a decade of solid recovery. Now, if you look at the number of offers, there is no end in sight on this, and it's significantly above, more so than the number of new listings. This is going to be what keeps the days of unsold inventory low, and why the market's going to be so frantic and so fast paced, and why overbidding is going to happen. Now, this is the number of closings. Number of closings lags behind the number of new offers, but I will also point out that this vertical separation here isn't as high as it was on the new offers. And look at the magnitude. Even if you go back 4 weeks, so if this is week number 10, come back to week number 6, and you're getting offers somewhere around 475 offers. You come here and you're only closing about 450. That gives you a rough idea of what your TFT ratio is, somewhere around 25 homes out of, call it 500 for easy math. That's 5%. That's pretty low. The couple reasons it's so low is buyers are grateful to get into a house. Number two is I'm looking back over 35 days. So if a transaction falls apart on day number 5, it will have counted for 1/7 of a transaction instead of a complete transaction. So this is a very conservative estimate. I think the real number is probably in a hot marketplace like this, somewhere around 10%. Normal is somewhere around 15 to 20%. And it's just too time consuming to get that accurate number. Here is the overbidding. This becomes somewhat interesting. There is a sawtooth pattern to this data that I wouldn't expect. I have no idea why it's there. It's clearly there. And you have some huge sawtooths back here a few weeks ago. But the overall takeaway is you're basically 75% a week ago, 73% this week of the sellers getting more than they're asking for. This is how frequently buyers are willing to overpay. We're not at a record area, but we're in record territory. We did get up to 80, but I mean, 75, 80, what's the difference? That's 5%. Anytime you're talking about a major purchase, to give the seller more than they're asking for gives you an idea of the amount of demand there is. Now, the frequency, and look how rapidly this has gone up. And keep in mind, this requires close of escrows. So there's a 30-day lag time. So this was basically week number 7. You go back 30 days, you're at week number 3. So basically starting in the middle of January, basically right with Martin Luther King's birthday, the market, as far as the amount of overbidding, increased fairly significantly from somewhere around 104% to somewhere around 107. That's a 3% overbidding, which is probably a 3% appreciation. What's the real appreciation? I wish I knew. I think it's greater than 7.5%, and think it might be approaching 12%, which is insane since we're only a few weeks into the year. But it's my belief that prices basically do a step function starting in the middle of January, and the real estate industry, the appraisal industry, the consumers aren't willing to all of a sudden write a check for 12% more. And so it takes time, and you have this rapid run up. Here's the magnitude in the different micro market areas. Again, you can see when I was having inability to get the data. My plan for this period of time is to go back and get the data for every Friday night at midnight and then linear interpolate in between. So instead of having 7 data points for every week, I'll only have 1 and just linearly divide it, because there's not much of a change. If you're going from here to here, they are pretty straight lines. It's really nothing that's that takeaway, and it's behind us, so it's not that big of a deal. But I do want to get it, want to clean up the data points. But again, the takeaway is look at the red line. We're up here. The red line is Santa Clara County single family homes. It's the single biggest micro market, which is why I made it red. And it's jumped up here at about 107, just over 107%. Just a few weeks ago, at the end of January, it was down at around 104%. That's what I was just talking about. That is lagged by 30 days. So, and this is the distribution. This is the sale price to list price distribution for every given week. Now, the current week is the bold one in red, and this is macro data. So this brings in San Mateo County, and it brings in condos, and it looks at the distribution. As you go up this direction, you're in improving marketplace, with the dotted line being the best month we ever had, which was April 2018. You can see the dotted lines are the oldest lines, then the dash, then the solid, and it hasn't been a straight progression in the upward direction. There's been some fluctuation, but you can see that the solid lines, the most recent lines, the lines that are basically since the first of the year, since January the 23rd, onward, have all been at the top of the pack. If you go back into last year, they jump around a little bit, because here, this dotted line here, the blue one, looks like it was December 26th was one of the slowest months, and the dotted lines going back to November were better. So you slow down at the end of the year, and then you come back up. Thing that happens, holidays are events that take people away from real estate. Real estate is an optional event for most people. This is the same data point, just fewer of them. So now we're only going back to December 26th. Here you can sort of see the dotted lines are sort of on the bottom end. Then you get to the dashed lines, and then the solid lines. And again, the red line is the current data. This now is looking forward a little bit. Today's the 13th, so this is the 12th. Now what we're doing is, instead of looking at the 35 days, I only have 12 days. So I'm looking at 12 days and plotting it to all the other homes. And so this is single family homes in Santa Clara County. And what it's doing is if the beginning of the month and the end of the month is the same, this is where the line would be so you can compare it. So we're basically having the second best March that we've ever had. I never thought we'd get back up to another 2018. The way the market's going, we may just do that. Second best month, I'll take that. And notice the big jump up from where the top of the pack is. So we're doing significantly better than our best months. Here's sort of our worst years down here than our best years. Notice there's very little in the middle, which is where you'd expect the market to be. It's usually at one extreme or another, and we're now pushing up towards the upper limit. It is interesting at the very top end here, there's a little sag, which means buyers are a little hesitant to way over bid. I think that's because of COVID. I think with a little bit more time that will go away, and this will start following the more normal pattern, which would be going up a little steeper at the left-hand side. With that, I will pause and ask people, ask any questions they may have on the weekly presentation before we get into the monthly presentation. So now what we'll do, since this is the second Saturday of the month, we will look at what's happened in the month of February. My month of February is actually February plus a few days into March to get to 35 days. So here is what I call February data. You can see February here. The March 7th is the day that I collect the data because I need 7 days of data into March to collect 35 days starting on February the 1st. At 602 single family homes in Santa Clara County, there is no other year where we were this low. Yeah, we were close in 2018 at 615. This is the lowest. Now keep in mind, the monthly data, I'm only talking about single family homes in Santa Clara County, which is the fastest marketplace. The median asking price is 1.7 million, basically the same as last year. This is really an irrelevant number. And the reason for that is what's on the marketplace is different than what's selling. There are more expensive homes that may take longer to sell. And it's just a different set of data points. What's interesting is when you look at the average and median days on the market, 45 and 11, if you look back, those are pretty good, but you can see in 2015, 18, it was lower. And, we had 11 and 33 back here in 2013. But what becomes interesting is when you go from 45 and 11 down to 18 and 8, that's a huge discrepancy. I'm not sure there's any other discrepancy that is that big. If you come back here to 33 and 11, it was 33 and 11. So what's this telling you? It's telling you that there's a group of homes that are staying on the market for a real long period of time, because this is what's on the market and hasn't sold. It's been on the market for longer than what has sold. So we call these in the industry overpriced turkeys, or there's something undesirable about them and they're not going to sell until either the market catches up to them, which is starting to happen, or the seller of the property gets more realistic. And then this is just a quick description of the house, how many square feet, how many bedrooms and bathrooms. It's the median square footage and average for bedrooms and bathrooms. Then the next group is offers accepted. These are your pending transactions. And I don't like using the word pending because the MLS now looks at pending transactions. So what's wrong with that is if you have an escrow that takes 60 days, it's an account twice as long in the data as one that took 30 days. And if you have one that only is 15 days, it only counts half as long. And in my opinion, a transaction is a transaction. So I look at sales based on offers that were accepted in the last 35 days, whether they are closed or are pending, or, as long as they haven't fallen apart, because so they have fallen out of escrow, they're back on the marketplace. So now if you look at this, you see 18 and 8, much lower, much faster marketplace. And if you look back historically, these are basically the fastest speeds you can get. Arguably 15 and 9 is probably a little bit stronger marketplace because the average is lower, indicating it's more broadband, even though the median is higher in 2018. What I find interesting is my own business practice. I'm actually spending longer marketing a property. I want to make sure people get in without the ability to have 200 people through on a Saturday and 200 people through on a Sunday. I've gone from a 6-day marketing default to an 8-day marketing default. So the fact that these are record low median days is pretty significant. Here's your DUI, which is the leading indicator. I am a little surprised that this is indicating 33. Again, I'm not sure that that's a real number, so I have to go back and check my data points. The takeaway is it's somewhere between 33 and 22. That's a pretty large range that would probably upset most people. But the reason I'm not worried about it is anything below 40, the market's absolutely on fire. Even 40 to 80 is sort of the balanced marketplace. So even if we got up to 50 or 60, you would still expect milder price appreciation. It's not until you're starting to bump up around 75, 80 that I expect prices to flatten out. And only when you start getting above 80, or if you're at 80 for a long period of time, would I expect prices to actually decrease potentially. So yes, I do want to come back and find out why the numbers getting crunched or don't seem to be consistent, and find out and correct those errors, but at least I have data that's somewhat reasonable. The median price of what's selling is 1.4 million. We're selling 32 homes in a day. Now, if you look back at that, you have to come all the way back to 2012 to have that volume of inventory. So that's one of the things that is really interesting, is not only are prices going up because of people think scarce resources, but we're actually selling a lot more transactions than we normally do. So basically what it's saying is the demand is what's really driving the marketplace now. And I think that's because people's housing needs have changed based on COVID. Now, what becomes interesting is with all these sales per day, and I'm not sure I understand this. I'm not sure what the difference is. I was actually, I think the red line is the wrong line being highlighted. So I need to go back and look at this, because 906 is what I was expecting. I don't know where the 749 came from. It could be just I didn't type it in because I did this by hand. And so I won't comment other than I suspect it's 906 and not this 746. I think that 749 is incorrect. And then the description of the house. Now, on closings, one of the things I'm trying to do is condense the amount of data that I'm throwing at people and sticking with the significant data. So with closings, the time on the market isn't really important. It's important up here. So with the offers accepted. So I'm planning on not doing this. If you think there's a reason to plot the closing days on market, let me know and I'll reconsider my current tentative rulings. Here is the sale price, which is the first time that getting into the price. So the first time I can bring that in. Yes, I'd like us to go back to the industry standard in 1980 of reporting a pending sale price, so we know what's happening to the market price right now and don't have to wait 30 days, but I get outvoted by my competitors and my cohorts. So here get the sale price ratios for the first time. We're seeing that on average, people are getting 7% more. 74% of the sellers are getting more than their asking price. Now, a little interesting thing is this median price dropped to $12.88. I don't know why it dropped. The 10 percentile went up, the 90 percentile went up. It's unusual for the middle of the market to be moving in a different direction than the extremes. Again, it potentially is a data point error. And just the fact that the median list price of what's sold is $13.89 and this is $12.88, that would actually tend to suggest sellers are getting less than their asking price, and that isn't happening. This number, the $12.88, I question, but it's a pretty basic calculation, so I don't know how it could be wrong, but I will be looking into that now that I have some data to report finally. And then you get down to how many transactions in the last 35 days that closed, 642. You can see that's not outrageously high compared to the other closings for the month of February, but it's still on the high end. And I say on the high end because the last 5 years have all been good years. But if you note back here in 2000 and early 2000s, we had a lot more inventory, a lot more transactions. The market has been slowing down, which is, I think, one of the reasons the CAR, California Association of Realtors, pushed through Prop 19 was they're believing that Prop 13 was keeping a lot of people in their houses. And as Bay Area prices got more expensive, they had the biggest incentives to stay put. And that explains why the decreasing transactions. Frankly, the Santa Clara County single-family homes have been growing. We haven't been eliminating single-family homes. And so you'd expect these number of transactions to be higher. You come back here and you're 1,200, you're easily, maybe pick 1,000, 800, some reasonable number, but you come up since 2016 and you're not even really breaking 600. You break 600, it's a great year. And then the square footage, I'm just noticing the bathrooms are truncated, and that's just an error. Here is 3 data points. The blue one is the most significant. That's days of unsold inventory. That's again where I perceive the market to be, down here somewhere around 20. Why this data point, which is the one on the slide back here, is so different. I think it was quite a bit different. Yeah, 33.8. That is 33.8. There is no way that's 33.8, because from there's 0, there's 40. It's right about in the middle. So I don't know why it's being pulled out as the wrong number. So this appears correct. If you look back, you can see that we're basically in record territory, at least the neighborhood of record territory. The next important line is the fuchsia line down here. It's median days on the market, and you can see how flat it was. It didn't really go up last year, and that's because buyers came in and bought everything that was on the marketplace. Notice, every year you have an upswing. 2017 we didn't have an upswing, but that was a crazy time too. Start back here, 13 upswing, 14 upswing, 15 upswing, 16 upswing, 17 missed it, 18 have it, 19 you have it, 20 it wasn't there. So that is a strong indication that the market is strong. The yellow line is the average days on market, less significant. This gets more fluctuated by the sellers that, have that overpriced turkey that can't sell. But these numbers are, again, on relatively low numbers. So out of all these, the two that I think are most significant are the blue line, days on unsold inventory, by far the most important. The fuchsia line is the second most important, with the median days on market. Now we're looking at the overbidding. We have two components of overbidding. One is the frequency of overbidding, and that is sitting here somewhere around 70. It looks like to me 70.5%, but I thought I saw the number at 72.2%, and I wouldn't argue it. Just 72.2 would be basically halfway between, so it seems a little bit on the short side. So there seems to be an issue with my graph and my numbers not 100% agreeing. But again, this is approaching record territory. Yes, you were higher in 2017 and 18. Yes, you're at the same level as we were just before COVID. Yes, you're a little bit lower than 2015, but you're right there in the same ballpark. You're in the peaks of these years, and you're much earlier in the year. So I think this is going to go up and exceed some of these records. Will we exceed 80%? I don't know. That's a pretty tall mark to exceed. So this is how many sellers are getting it. So roughly 3/4 of your sellers are getting more than they're asking. So 3 out of 4. That's great. Here is the magnitude of overbidding. This is how much buyers are willing to overpay to get a house. And they're not necessarily overpaying. I've had this discussion with a client just the other day. We were trying to determine a property value. And yes, it's above the comps, but are you overpaying? And, time after time we go in and we lose out our offer. So are you overpaying? You're overpaying based on the comps, but you have to realize that this market increased basically in the middle of January. It takes 30 days to close. You only have data maybe since the middle of February. That's like 30 days of data. You're supposed to use 6 months. So 5, 6 of your data is from behind. In early January, not many people are buying. So something like only 10% of your transactions are from the period of time where it might reflect the price. So you have to just go with your gut and say, how much has the market improved? And you go for it. This is looking at a 12-month moving average. I've never been really pleased with the performance of this data, but the purple line here, that's days of unsold inventory. You can see here, this is closer to the 18.8 days that I was mentioning earlier. So this is real-time data. The other data in the background is 12-month average. So it's trying to show you where the market's going. So the blue line is inventory, and that's basically taking 12 months, adding up what the inventory is and dividing by 12. And you can see inventory is basically flat. It's below where it was last time we had any stability in the marketplace. You had the big perturbations here. This was when the market accelerated in 17, and then the market slowed down in the latter half of 18, and then we were starting to improve again, and we had shelter in place. But now you can basically see inventory is tighter than it normally has been, but look at the downward trend of inventory. What's been causing that? People are staying put in their houses longer. But then the other two lines are the number of offers, the red line, and it's been increasing. and it's getting back to the level here. So we're getting back to the level we were in 2014 through 2016 as far as the number of offers with less inventory. And then the gold line is the offers, the closings. So there's a lag time of 30 days. So you have to shift by 30 days. And then the vertical separation is sort of a very conservative estimate of your TFT ratio. And then your green line is your price. And you can see right here, we had this little dip. This is the median price only, which is shocking. It's probably just the fluctuation of at the end of the year, people that have families take Christmas off even during COVID. And here you can see the 10 percentile price. It's basically up just slightly. You can see the 90 percentile price is up fairly dramatically. And you can see the median of the marketplace, which is supposed to be better behaved, is collapsing. And I'm using the word collapsing because you were at something like 1480 here, and now you're at something like, I think it's at 1299. So you've come down almost $200,000. The market isn't doing that. So there's a fluctuation, there's a bad data point, there's something. And here you can see it. That was on semi-log graph paper. Here you can see it in real terms a little bit better. The number here looks like it was 14, maybe 1435. So you went from 1435 to call 1299, 1.3 million. So maybe the drop was only $1/8 million, but $1/8 million on 1.4 is still close to 10%. The bulk of the drop happened from January to February, which would be closings in, offers accepted during the month of December. And you can see there's typically a drop down, except I wasn't expecting it this year with COVID. So basically, maybe what it's saying is people finally took a holiday and took Christmas as seriously as normal. And this is looking at the median price compared to the median. And that's what this middle line that's right at 100% is. This is the cheapest 10% home compared to the median. This is the top 10% and the 90 percentile price compared to the median. So starting in 2000, you can see coming into 2006, you had some price compression. Then you sort of had the bottom fall out of the finances, and you had some price expansion happen as recession happened. And now you're having some price compression again. And you had price compression on the lower end, but you had price expansion on the upper end, and the middle, plots on itself. And that's because this dropped down. And with that, I think I'm done. Open for any questions on any topic. If there is no topic of conversation, we can get into a little bit of detail on the weekly stuff, because I do believe I have data on that. Any questions? And I'll probably run out of time. So this is what we're going to do now. We're going to look at 11 different metrics. Each metric has 5 graphs. We're only going to look at one graph. It's going to be mostly Santa Clara County single-family homes, San Mateo County single-family homes, and condos and townhouses in Santa Clara County. You're going to see this flat pattern. That was when I was having my data issues. I hope to go back and, as I said, get weekly data and then linear interpolate between them. I don't believe the red line here, and this is saying that we have over 40 days of unsold inventory, which again is yet a different number. We've had 44, we've had 33, and we've had like 18. I believe the 18 is the accurate number. I need to find out where it's grabbing these other numbers. San Mateo County, on the other hand, it's come from somewhere around 40, which I think was accurate, down to 20, which I don't think is accurate. And I don't think the data is a switch, but that's closer to being reality. So in fact, that may be what happened. If you follow the red line, and then the red line becomes the gray line, and if the gray line then becomes the red line, you're closer, but that doesn't even work. So clearly I have an issue with some of my graphs. This is the magnitude of overbidding, which does appear to be working, and you can see the step up didn't happen on this one data point, which is why if I can go back here, this will slope up pretty rapidly. This was accurate data here where it's jagged. It's accurate data here. You can just draw a sort of a sloped up line in between instead of keeping the data at the same data point. And again, that should get filled in, and then we'll move forward. Here is median days on the market. There isn't as much fluctuation on this line. So the fact that they're straight lined in here was actually fairly close to what the real data is going to show. There will be some fluctuation, but basically it's showing that Santa Clara County is down here at 8 days unsold, 8 days median on the marketplace. San Mateo County is somewhere around 10. It's slowed it down to 9 days, it looks like. The condos in in Santa Clara County is floating up to somewhere around 12 days, median days on the market. This is current active inventory. This one, again, you can see the lines are pretty good here at the end. This is basically since about March, maybe 4th or something like that, when I was able to start working again on getting the data. This is clearly a bad data point here, which could explain why my days on sold inventory is all over the place. We'll find that out. Moving on to offers accepted over the past 5 weeks. I believe the data is accurate to about that point here. The shoot off the graph is clearly not accurate. Again, you can see the trend is up. It's up significantly from the beginning part of January, beginning part of this year, end of January, but it's not back to yet the summer levels, which I wouldn't expect since we're just in March. This is the number of closed transactions, which lags behind in the different micro market areas. This is sold prices. So here, again, you can see the sold prices. You can see they're basically at the same level, up a little bit. Some of these up here went up more. Now look at the median. Okay, here's the 10 percentile for the county data, which is what I was supposed to be looking at. Except for the last data point, it looks pretty good. And that may be, if I can correct the last data point, maybe my consistencies will go along. Here are the 22 median prices. And now you can start here and you can sort of say, yeah, the prices are down a little bit. And here is where you're looking at, and look at the jump down in all the categories. And again, I don't buy this for San Mateo County, because it jumped down to right at Santa Clara County's level. So maybe my formula got goofed up. That's probably what happened. Now you're looking at the 90 percentile of the 22 micro market areas.